למד כל הירושלמי. איפה הבחור?
הוא היה לפני החתונה של הרב.
עושה סיום על כל הירושלמי, הוא רוצה ברוך שלא יצלח את זה.
לפני החתונה.
Why are separations of tithes so important? There's a conversation in Yerushalmi Berachot where Rabbi Nehorai is speaking with Eliyahu Navi, and they are talking about why do earthquakes come about. And Rabbi Nehorai says to Eliyahu Navi, for what cause do earthquakes come about? And it's because of the sin for failing to properly separate Trumos and Maestros. The Pnei Moshe has an amazing commentary on it. He says that this is a punishment that fits the transgression measure for measure, and that the mitzvot of Trumos and Maestros relates to the product of the earth, and therefore when they are not properly fulfilled, Hashem exacts punishment through the medium of the earth in the form of earthquakes. Now, in the back and forth of the Gemara, this is not going to be the halacha l'maisa for why there are earthquakes. The sages say it's for another reason. This is the opinion of Rabbi Nehorai. And Rabbi Nehorai is going to give support why this is. He says, when Israel does the will of the omnipresent and separates the maestros as required, then the eyes of Hashem, your God, are always upon it. This is talking about the land. And from the beginning of the year until the end of the year, and the land is not harmed in any way. This, by the way, is talking about and referring to Devarim 11:12, which is a verse that's going to be talking about Hashem's goodness toward the land, that he's always watching the land and ensuring peace, and that there's an elevated state in Eretz Yisrael of Kedusha. Mar continues and says, but when Israel does not do the will of a Kodesh Baruch Hu, and they do not separate their maestros as required, they are subject to the penalties described in the verse where it says, the one who gazes upon the land and it trembles. This is a reference to Tehillim 104:32. The Gemara is basically saying, says Rabbi Kanievsky, when Israel fulfills their Trumos and Maestros obligations, Hashem's gaze on the Jewish people in the land here is going to be benevolent. And when they do not fulfill these obligations, his gaze is going to be destructive. He's going to bring calamities and earthquakes upon them, basically the land and the people. I want to point this out. Also the human being is also created in the earth. The human being is also created in the start of Bereshit. Hashem creates the man out of the dust and the dirt. Original test was Hashem is basically saying, Ein Od Milvado. The idea is that there's only God, and listen to the will of God. And Adam fails that. And when the human being is expelled out from the garden, and humanity has to go into this world, a world that has challenges for Parnassah, the ultimate sin in many ways is not fulfilling monetary law, not fulfilling Trumos and Maestros, which in a way is connected to monetary law because you went out, you produced product, you didn't give out tithes. Who gave you the money? Who gave you the Parnassah? Hashem gave it to you. When you come along and you don't separate out tithes, it's the ultimate statement of, yes, Od Milvado, yes, that there's another power source in the universe, and I'm that power source. I'm the one earning the money. And instead, the right way is to say that Hashem is giving you the Parnassah and the money, and also part of the will of Hashem is that you're separating this out for tithes. What is the way that you're supposed to separate tithes? You're supposed to give away 10%, and the Vilna Gaon says 20% of your profits to religious causes. You're supposed to, the ideal, the highest, is to give anonymously to kiruv organizations and yeshivot that are actively involved in getting into the depths of halacha. When you are not separating out Trumos and Maestros, you are effectively saying that you have your own will, and Hashem's will doesn't really matter. That is really, in many ways, the exact same sin that Adam made, and that is really the test of where we are in this world. It's really to say that there is only one, there's only God, Ein Od Milvado, and only God's will matters, and pursuing God's will matters. When you are not separating out Trumos and Maestros, you are effectively saying, I have my own will. Whatever, who cares about God's will? And that's very serious, and ultimately, as this back and forth with Eliyahu and Navi and with Rabbi Nehorai is coming to show, is that disaster will come because you are denying God's will. You're saying that you're a power source in the universe, and there is no other power source in the universe except for Shem. Jewish law gets split up into 6 main parts in the way it's organized and set up, particularly in the Mishnah. One of the orders is going to be Nezikin. Nezikin is going to be dealing with property rights and damages. That is going to be like your property. That's your thing. Another order is going to be Zerayim. Zerayim is going to be dealing with growing things and also with tithing and giving to charity. One of the tithes that's biblically mandated is a tithe that goes to the poor. It's called Meiser Ani. And what most people don't understand, when you produce something, when something grows for you, you have to separate out the tithes. So what's happening is inside of that, say, pile of grain or whatever that you've produced, there is property that belongs to somebody else mixed into it. And only after you separate out these biblically mandated tithes does that now become entirely your property. So don't think about, let's say, whatever you produced in farming as being entirely yours once you've picked it. Inside of it, you have to give out the tithes first, and then it's yours. Now, Hashem gave this to you. It grew, and it was productive because Hashem is giving it to you. But it's really Hashem's property. The whole world is Hashem's property. And it's for you to use it in a way that is consistent with how the world is supposed to be run. And that's why it's very important to give out charity, because again, it's not really yours. And if you're just going to come along and say, well, I made this money and I'm not going to, have any regard for people less fortunate than me. Well, what's amazing about it is that, no, inside of there still belongs some of the charity that belongs to the poor people. It's not exactly yours. So if you just disregard that, in a way, you're committing theft. You're taking from the disadvantaged. And that's what is so amazing about the differences between Nezikin and Zerayim. In other words, that after you've taken out this charity from something that Hashem gave you, now it's yours to use. Have a great day.